Captain Hansel stood at the viewing port of Terra Nova Station, watching supply ships dock with mechanical precision. The war was over. After 5 long years of fighting the Valerian Empire across 12 star systems, the galaxy was finally at peace. The cost had been terrible. Entire worlds reduced to ash, billions dead. But humanity had won, and that was what mattered. His reflection stared back from the reinforced glass. The man looking back was older than his 32 years, suggested. Gray streaks ran through his black hair, and deep lines marked his face where laughter once lived. War had a way of stealing youth, replacing it with something harder and colder.
Captain Park.
Hansel, report to command immediately. The station's announcement system crackled to life, pulling him from his thoughts. Saul straightened his uniform and walked through the corridors of the massive space station. Terra Nova had served as humanity's forward command post during the war. Now it was becoming the center of peacekeeping operations for the entire galaxy. The command center buzzed with activity. Officers moved between holographic displays showing star charts and fleet positions.
Ow.
The smell of coffee and recycled air filled the room. Hansel found Commander Yi-Gen waiting for him at a secure terminal in the corner. Yes, sir. Captain Park Hansel reporting as ordered. Yi-Gen looked up from his datapad. He was a thin man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. They had served together during the siege of Kepler 4 for 2B, where Hansel had earned his promotion by holding the line against impossible odds. Take a seat, Captain. We need to discuss your new assignment. Hansel settled into the chair across. From his superior, he had expected this conversation. With the war over, the military was downsizing rapidly. Combat officers were being reassigned to peacekeeping duties or sent home to civilian life. He had hoped for something quiet, maybe. Training new recruits or managing supply depots. I assume you're sending me to one of the outer colonies, Hansel said. Or perhaps Earth itself for some desk work. Yi-Gen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Not exactly. You're being assigned to a protection detail. Very specific, very classified. Protection detail. Hansel had done those before the war, guarding diplomats and government officials. It was boring work, but it paid well and kept him away from combat. After 5 years of fighting, boring sounded perfect. Who am I protecting, sir? An alien refugee? Goes by the name Nara. She's been granted asylum on Earth under the Galactic Protection Act. Hansel frowned. The Galactic Protection Act had been passed during the war's final year, offering sanctuary to alien species displaced by the conflict. Most refugees were housed in camps on the outer colonies, not given personal protection details. What makes her special? Yi-Gen activated his datapad, and a holographic image appeared above the desk. Hansel's breath caught in his throat. The woman in the image was stunning. Her skin had a silver luminescence that seemed to glow from within. Her hair was long and white, flowing like silk around her shoulders. But it was her eyes that captured his attention. They were large and expressive, shifting between blue and green like an ocean under changing skies. Yi-Gen explained. Her homeworld was destroyed during the war's final phase. The Valerians glassed the entire planet. She's believed to be the sole survivor of her species. Hansel studied the image more carefully. The Ashanti were known for their advanced culture and peaceful nature. They had been neutral during the war, refusing to take sides even when the Valerians demanded tribute. Their neutrality had cost them everything. Why does she need protection? The war is over. There are still Valerian sympathizers out there. Sleeper cells, extremist groups. Intelligence suggests some of them blame her people for not supporting the Empire. She could be a target. That made sense, but Hansel sensed there was more too. The story. Yi-Gen was being careful with his words, choosing them like a man walking through a minefield. Where is she now? Sol. We have a safe house in the diplomatic quarter. Your job is to monitor her activities, ensure her safety, and file daily reports on her behavior. Monitor her activities. That was an interesting way to phrase protection duty. Hansel had done enough intelligence work to recognize surveillance. When he heard it, is there something specific I should be watching for? Yi-Gen hesitated for a moment. She arrived on Earth 3 weeks ago. Her escape pod was found drifting in deep space by one of our patrol ships. She claims to be a cultural archivist who escaped her world's destruction with historical data about her people. Claims to be. Her story checks out, but there are some inconsistencies. The sector where we found her pod showed signs of massive energy discharge. The kind of readings we usually see around weapons of mass destruction. Now they were getting to the real reason for this assignment. Hansel leaned forward in his chair. You think she's hiding something? I think she's traumatized and possibly dangerous. Her people had technology we don't fully understand. If she's carrying something that could threaten Earth's security, we need to know about it. Hansel looked at the holographic image again. The woman appeared gentle, almost fragile. Her eyes held a sadness that spoke of terrible loss. It was hard to imagine her as a threat to anyone. What are my specific orders? Live in the safe house with her. Pose as her cultural liaison and protector. Build trust, get close to her, and find out what she's really hiding. Intelligence Officer Jiwoo will be your handler. She'll provide backup and coordinate with other agencies as needed. The assignment felt wrong somehow. Hansel had spent 5 years fighting alien enemies, but this felt different. This felt like betrayal. Sir, she's a refugee. She's lost everything. If we're going to spy on her, shouldn't we at least be honest about it? Ye Chen's expression hardened. Captain, I'm going to remind you that 6 billion humans died in this war. 6 billion. If there's even a small chance that this woman poses a threat to Earth, we need to know about it. Your job is to protect humanity, not to make friends with aliens. The words stung, but Hansel understood the logic. The war had taught everyone hard lessons about trust and survival. Still, something about the whole situation bothered him.
I win.
Do I start? Tomorrow. A transport will take you to Seoul at 0800 hours. You'll find a full briefing packet waiting for you there, along with your cover identity and equipment. Ye-jun stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Hansel rose as well, but paused at the door. Sir, what happened to the rest of her people? The official reports say the Valerians destroyed Ashanti Prime, but were there no other survivors? According to our intelligence, the planet was completely sterilized. No life signs detected after the bombardment. She's the only one who made it out. Hansel nodded and left the command center. As he walked back to his quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being sent to do something he would regret. The woman in the hologram had looked so sad, so lost. She deserved protection, not surveillance, but orders were orders, and Hansel was still a soldier. Tomorrow, he would go to Seoul and begin his new assignment. He would watch over Nara, the last of the Ashanti, try to discover what secrets she might be hiding. He just hoped he was prepared for whatever he might find. Hansel arrived at the Seoul safe house on a rainy Thursday morning. The building was a traditional Korean home, hidden in the diplomatic quarter, surrounded by high walls and security cameras. From the outside, it looked peaceful and ordinary. Inside, he knew it was anything but. The front door opened before he could knock. Nara stood in the doorway, and Hansel felt his breath catch. The holographic image hadn't done her justice. She was even more beautiful in person, with skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Her white hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her eyes were the color of deep ocean water. You must be Hansel, she said in perfect Korean. Her voice was gentle and musical. I have been waiting for you. Yes, I'm your new cultural liaison and protector, Hansel replied, studying her face for any sign of deception. I hope we can work well together, Nara smiled, and for a moment her whole face lit up. Please, come in. I have prepared tea. She led him through the house, which had been modified for security. The windows were bulletproof, and Hansel spotted several hidden cameras and sensors. The back garden was enclosed by a high fence topped with electronic barriers. It was a comfortable prison. It's designed to keep threats out and secrets in. The living room was decorated with traditional Korean furniture. But Hansel noticed several alien artifacts on the shelves. They looked like crystals, but they pulsed with a faint inner light. Nara saw him looking at them. Those are memory stones from my homeworld, she explained. They contain historical records of my people. It is all I have left of Ashanti Prime. Hansel nodded and took the seat she offered. Nara poured tea from a ceramic pot, her movements graceful and precise. She had clearly studied human customs carefully. "Tell me about your work," Hansel said, settling into his role. "Commander Yejun mentioned you were a cultural archivist." "Yes, I worked in the Great Library of Endara. We preserved the knowledge and stories of our people for future generations." Her eyes grew sad. "I never imagined I would be the only one left to remember them." Over the next few days, Hansel settled into a routine. He filed daily reports on Nara's activities, which seemed completely normal. She spent her mornings reading human history books and her afternoons tending to the small garden behind the house. She cooked traditional Korean meals with surprising skill and watched news broadcasts to learn about Earth culture, but Hansel began to notice strange things. The first incident happened on his third day. Nara was preparing dinner when she received a news alert about a terrorist attack on a Valerian refugee camp. Her face went pale, and the lights in the kitchen flickered. The electric stove sparked, and the refrigerator made a grinding noise, before shutting down completely. "I am sorry," Nara said quickly, looking embarrassed. "I sometimes affect electronics when I am upset. It is a minor biological trait of my people." Hansel made a note in his report, but he had read the Ashanti species file. There was no mention of any electrical interference abilities. The second incident was more dramatic. Hansel was working in his small office when he heard Nara crying in the garden. He looked out the window and saw her kneeling beside a dying rose bush, tears streaming down her face. As he watched, her tears fell on the withered plants. Within minutes, the roses began to bloom again. Not just bloom, but grow at an impossible rate. The stems stretched upward, leaves unfurled, and dozens of perfect red flowers burst open. The entire garden seemed to come alive around her. When Hansel went outside, Nara was gone. He found her in her room, claiming she had been reading all afternoon. But the garden was transformed. Plants that had been dying that morning now grew thick and healthy. The roses were the size of dinner plates, and their scent filled the air. Hansel contacted his handler, intelligence officer Jiwoo, and requested a meeting. They met at a coffee shop in downtown Seoul, far from the safe house and its surveillance. Equipment Godwoo was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, who had spent most of the war working intelligence operations. She listened to Hansel's report with growing interest. Electronics malfunctioning around her accelerated plant growth, she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "That's not in any of the files we have on her species. Or something else," Hansel said. "She speaks Korean perfectly, but sometimes I hear her talking to herself in another language. It doesn't sound like any of the Ashanti dialects in our database. What does it sound like?" "Like several voices speaking at once. Layered, almost like a chorus. And her eyes glow sometimes, especially at night." Gi-woo set down her cup and leaned forward. "Hansel, I need to tell you something about her rescue. The official report says her escape pod was found drifting in space, but that's not the whole story." Hansel felt his stomach tighten. What really happened? The pod was found in a debris field. Not just any debris field, but the remains of a Valerian battle fleet, 12 ships completely destroyed. The energy readings from the wreckage were off the charts. Whatever killed those ships used technology we've never seen before. You think she destroyed them? I think she was there when they died. The question is how and why. Hansel thought about the gentlewoman who cooked his meals and tended her garden. It seemed impossible that she could destroy an entire fleet, but then again, he had seen what her tears could do to plants. "There's more," Giwoo continued. 3 other worlds fell during the war's final phase, worlds where survivors reported seeing a silver-skinned figure before the destruction began. The descriptions matched Nara perfectly. That's impossible. She's been in our custody for weeks. The sightings were before her rescue. The last one was at Kepler 438b, just 2 days before we found her pod. Hansel remembered Kepler 438b. It had been a thriving colony world with 2 million inhabitants. The Valerians had bombarded it from orbit, leaving nothing but ash and radiation. But if Nara had been there, double quotes, What do you want me to do? Keep watching her. Get closer. Find out what she's really hiding. Jiwoo's expression was serious, but be careful. She destroyed a Valerian fleet. She's more dangerous than we thought.
Right.
Knight Hanzal returned to the safe house with new eyes. Nara greeted him at the door, as always, with a warm smile and the smell of cooking food. But now he noticed things he had missed before. She never slept. He had checked several times, and she was always awake, standing at the window and staring at the stars. Her breathing was too regular, too controlled. And when she thought he wasn't looking, her expression changed. The gentle sadness was replaced by something harder, more watchful. During dinner, she asked him about his war experiences. Her questions were casual, but they showed a deep understanding of military tactics and strategy. She knew about troop, movements, supply lines, and battle formations. Too much knowledge for a cultural archivist. You fought at Kepler 442b, she said, refilling his rice bowl. That must have been terrible. How do you know about that battle? I read the news reports. The siege lasted 3 months. You held the northern perimeter against impossible odds. Hansel studied her face. The northern perimeter wasn't mentioned in any public reports. For just a moment, Nara's eyes flickered with something that might have been panic. Then she smiled again. I must have read it in a military journal. I have been studying human warfare to better understand your people. Hansal knew that information was classified. The only way she could know about the northern perimeter was if she had been there, or if she had access to classified military files. After dinner, he watched her through the security cameras. She stood in the garden, her face tilted toward the war. Stars, her lips moved as if she were speaking to someone, but there was no sound. The plants around her swayed gently, even though there was no wind. Han-Sol began to compile a new report for Jiwoo. But as he wrote, he found himself wondering what Nara was really hiding. Was she a weapon, as the evidence suggested, or was she something else entirely, something that neither he nor intelligence had considered? One thing was certain. The woman living in his safe house was not the simple refugee she pretended to be. And Hansel was beginning to suspect that her secrets might be more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 2 weeks had passed since Hansal's meeting with Jiwoo. The morning started like any other. Nara was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, her silver hair catching the sunlight that streamed through the windows. She hummed softly as she worked, a melody that sounded both beautiful and alien. We need groceries today, she said without looking up from the stove. The market has fresh vegetables, and I want to try making kimchi the traditional way. Hansel nodded, checking his weapon out of habit. The routine grocery trips were part of maintaining her cover as a normal resident. They always took the same route, always shopped at the same stores, always returned within 2 hours. It was boring work, but it helped Nara feel more human. They left the safe house at 10 in the morning. The Seoul streets were busy with morning traffic and pedestrians heading to work. Nara walked beside Hansel, her eyes bright with curiosity as she watched the people around them. She had adapted to human clothing, wearing a simple blue dress and white shoes. To anyone watching, they looked like an ordinary couple running errands. The market was crowded and noisy. Vendors called out their prices while customers haggled over vegetables and fish. Nara moved through the stalls with practiced ease, speaking Korean to the sellers and examining produce with the skill of someone who had done this many times before. These apples are perfect, she said, holding up a red fruit. On my world, we had something similar, but they were silver and grew underground. Hansel paid for the apples and added them to their shopping bag. Tell me more about your worlds. Food. We ate mostly fruits and grains. Our people believed that taking life, even plant life, should be done with respect and gratitude. Her voice grew sad. We had ceremonies to honor the growing seasons. They were walking toward the fish market when Hansal noticed them. 3 men in dark clothes, moving through the crowd with too much purpose. They were trying to look casual, but Hansal had enough combat experience to recognize hunters when he saw them. Nara, we need to leave now, he said quietly, taking her arm. She looked at him with confusion. What is wrong? Just trust me. Walk normally toward the exit. They had taken maybe 10 steps when the attack began. The first man appeared from behind a vegetable stall, a plasma rifle in his hands. The distinctive purple glow of Valerian technology hummed to life as he aimed at Nara. "Death to the World Killer," he shouted in accented Korean. Hansel threw himself between Nara and the gunman, his own weapon clearing its holster in one smooth motion. The plasma bolt seared past his ear, close enough to smell burning hair. He returned fire, his bullets catching the attacker in the chest. The second and third men appeared from different directions, their weapons already firing. Hansel grabbed Nara and pulled her behind a fruit stand as plasma bolts exploded around them. Apples and oranges burst into flame where the energy beams hit. "Stay down," Hansel ordered, reloading his pistol. "I'll handle this." There were too many of them. More men appeared from the crowd, all armed with military-grade weapons. These weren't random criminals. They were professional soldiers. Probably Valerian sleeper agents who had been waiting for this moment. Hansel fought desperately, using the market stalls for cover as he engaged the attackers. His training kicked in, muscle memory from 5 years of war guiding his movements. He dropped 2 more enemies, but others took their place. A plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing into a display of vegetables. Pain flared through his arm as he struggled to get back up. Blood ran down his shirt and his vision blurred. "Surrender the weapon," one of the attackers called out. "Give us the Ashanti, and we will let you live." Hansel looked at Nara, who was crouched behind the fruit stand. Her eyes were wide with terror, but there was something else there too. Something that made his blood run cold. "No," she whispered. "Not again. Oh, I cannot let this happen again." The air around her began to shimmer, like heat rising from summer pavement. The temperature dropped suddenly, and Hansel's breath came out in visible puffs. The fruits and vegetables around Nara started to wither and blacken, as if all the life was being drained from them. "Nara, what are you doing?" She looked at him, and her eyes were no longer blue-green. They glowed with brilliant white light, like staring into the heart of a star. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made his teeth ache. "I am sorry, Hansel. I tried so hard to control it." The energy that had been building around her suddenly exploded outward in a wave of pure force. The market stalls disintegrated. Like paper in a hurricane, the attackers didn't even have time to scream before they were reduced to nothing but scattered atoms. The concrete beneath her feet cracked and buckled. Windows in nearby buildings shattered simultaneously. Car alarms wailed throughout the district as every piece of electronics within a kilometer radius overloaded and died. Hansel felt the wave pass over him like a crushing weight. His bones ached, and his vision went white for a moment. Cleared, he was lying on the ground 20 meters from where he had been standing. The market was gone. Not destroyed, but completely erased, as if it had never existed. The ground was smooth and glassy, fused by incredible heat. The only things left were him and Nara, who was kneeling in the center of the devastation. She was no longer glowing. Her skin had returned to its normal silver luminescence, and her eyes were back to their ocean colors. But she looked smaller somehow, as if the display of power had drained something vital from her. "Nara," Hansel croaked, struggling to his feet. "What are you?" She looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "I am the last of my people, and I am the reason they are dead." Before he could respond, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Military vehicles were racing toward their position, their engines roaring as they navigated the debriefed streets. Hansel's communication, its device crackled to life. Giwu's voice came through the static. "Hansel, report. We detected a massive energy surge at your location. What is your status?" He looked at Nara, who was still kneeling in the center of the destruction. She made no move to run or hide. She simply waited, as if she had been expecting this moment for a long time. "The target has been compromised," Hansel said into his communicator. "We need immediate extraction and a full tactical team. Is she hostile?" Hansel studied Nara's face. She looked heartbroken, not dangerous. But the evidence of her power surrounded them like a crater on the moon. "I don't know," he admitted. But she's not what we thought she was. The first military vehicles arrived within minutes, followed by a full battalion of soldiers in combat. Armor? They surrounded the area with weapons ready, but there was nothing left to secure except Hansal and Nara. Gu stepped out of an armored transport, her face grim as she surveyed the destruction. She walked carefully across the fused ground, her boots clicking on the glass-smooth surface. "My God," she whispered. "What happened here?" "She happened," Hansel said, nodding toward Nara. "The attackers called her World Killer. I think we need to find out what that means." Jiwoo knelt beside Nara, who hadn't moved since the energy wave. "Miss Nara, can you hear me? I need to get you to a safe location." Nara looked up at her with eyes full of ancient sadness. "Safe," she said quietly. "There's no safe place for what I am. There never was." As they helped her to her feet, Hansel noticed something that made his blood freeze. The energy readings on his scanner were still climbing. Whatever power Nara had unleashed, it wasn't finished yet. It was building again, somewhere deep inside her, waiting for the next moment when her control would slip. He realized with growing horror that the attack on the market wasn't the end of something. It was just the beginning. And if Nara truly was responsible for destroying worlds, then Earth itself might be in more danger than anyone had imagined. The woman he had been assigned to protect wasn't just hiding secrets. She was a walking weapon of mass destruction, and now she was scared, angry, losing control. Hansal looked at the destruction around them and wondered if they were all already dead. They just didn't know it yet. The military compound outside Seoul looked like a fortress. High walls topped with energy barriers surrounded the main building, and armed guards patrolled every entrance. Inside, Nara sat in a white room with no windows, her hands folded in, her lap like a child waiting for punishment. Hansel watched her through the one-way glass, his shoulders still bandaged from the market attack. 3 days had passed since the incident, and Nara hadn't spoken a word to anyone except him. She ate the food they brought her and answered basic questions, but nothing more. "The energy readings are still climbing," Dr. Kyung said, checking his instruments. "Whatever she did at the market, it's building up again inside her." Gu stood beside Hansel, her expression worried. "Our scientists have never seen anything like this. The power levels are beyond anything in our databases." "Have you identified the attackers yet?" Hansel asked. "Valerian sleeper agents, like we suspected." But here's the interesting part. They weren't trying to capture her. They were trying to kill her. Their orders were to eliminate what they called the galaxy's greatest threat. Hansel frowned. If she's so dangerous, why didn't the Valerians use her during the war? Maybe they couldn't control her either. Through the glass, they watched Nara stand up and walk to the wall. She placed her palm against the white surface, and for a moment, the lights in the room flickered. Then she returned to her chair, her face expressionless. "I want to talk to her," Hansel said. "The psychologist said she's not responding to questioning." She "Talk to me," Jiwoo nodded reluctantly. 10 minutes. "And Hansel, be careful. We still don't know what triggers her power." Hansel entered the white room alone. Nara looked up when he came in, and for the first time in 3 days, she smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "Hello, Hansel. Are you feeling better? My shoulder's fine. How are you?" "I am tired," she said quietly. "Very tired." Hansel sat in the chair across from her. "Nara, I need you to tell me the truth. What really happened to your world?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. She finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I destroyed it." Words hit Hansel like a physical blow. "What?" "I destroyed Ashanti Prime. I killed my entire people. Every man, woman, and child on my world died because of me." Hansel felt his world shift. "That's impossible," the report said. "The Valerians destroyed your planet." Nara shook her head. "Duh. Valerians came to my world, yes. But they did not destroy it. I did." She stood up and began pacing the small room. As she moved, the lights flickered again, and Hansel could feel the air getting colder. "My people created me," she continued. "Out. Not born, created. I was designed to be the perfect weapon against our enemies." They gave me the power to destroy entire fleets with a thought. Why would a peaceful people create a weapon? Because we were dying. Her voice grew bitter. The Valerians were coming, and our peaceful ways could not stop them. Our leaders decided that if we could not save ourselves, we would at least take our enemies with us. Hansel tried to process what she was telling him, but something went wrong. Everything went wrong. The process that gave me power also did something else. It connected me to every living mind on Ashanti Prime. I could hear them all, billions of voices, all speaking at once in my head. She stopped pacing and looked at him with tears in her eyes. Do you know what it is like to hear an entire world crying out in fear, to feel their terror as if it were your own? The Valerians arrived while I was still learning to control my abilities. They demanded our surrender, threatened to destroy our cities if we refused. The people were so afraid, and their fear became my fear. Hansal was beginning to understand. Your power reacted to their emotions. I tried to save them. I really did. When the Valerian ships entered orbit, I reached out with my mind to destroy them, but the power that flowed through me was too much. It didn't stop with the ships. Sat down heavily, as if the memory exhausted her. The energy wave I created to destroy the fleet kept growing. It swept across my entire world like a plague. Everything it touched died. Plants, animals, people, all of it turned to ash in seconds. Billions of voices in my head, all screaming in agony as they died. And I felt every single death as if it were my own. Hansal felt sick. How did you survive? Because I am not truly alive. I am a biological machine designed to channel destruction. Death cannot touch me because I am death itself. The room was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. Hansal tried to find words, but what could he say to someone who had accidentally committed genocide? That's not the end of the story, Nara continued. After Ashanti Prime, I tried to find other survivors. I traveled to colony worlds, refugee camps, anywhere my people might have fled. But every time I arrived, my grief would overwhelm me. Power would escape, and another world would die. Kepler 438b, Hansal said quietly. And Tau Ceti C, and New Vegan. Each time I told myself I could control it. Each time, I was wrong. Hansal understood now why the Valerians had tried to kill her. She wasn't just a weapon. She was a weapon that couldn't be turned off. Many people have died because of me, Hansal. How many worlds have I destroyed? While trying to save them? Before he could answer, the door opened and Jiwoo entered with 2 guards. Her face was grim. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. Hansal, I need to speak with you immediately. They left Nara in the White Room and walked to a nearby conference room. Inside, several high-ranking military officers were waiting around a holographic display showing Earth. Gentlemen, this is Captain Park Hansal, our liaison with the subject, Jiwoo announced. General Dong Min, the base commander, stepped forward. Captain, we've been monitoring the energy readings from your alien friend. Our scientists believe she's building toward another release. What does that mean? It means that if she loses control again, the energy wave could sterilize everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. That includes Seoul and 20 million people. Hansel felt the blood drain from his face. She's not doing it on purpose. She can't control it, which is exactly why we need to act, said Dr. Song, the lead scientist. We've found a way to contain and study her power. With the right research, we could duplicate her abilities. You want to weaponize her? You want to understand her? General Dongmin corrected. Imagine if we could create controlled versions of her power. No enemy would ever threaten Earth again. Gu placed a hand on Hansal's shoulder. Tomorrow morning, she'll be transferred to a secure research facility. Our best scientists will work to find a way to safely channel her abilities. And if they can't, the general's expression was cold. Then we'll have to consider more permanent solutions. The safety of Earth comes first. Hansal returned to the observation room and looked through the glass at Nara. She was sitting perfectly still, but he could see the energy patterns dancing around her like invisible lightning. She was a bomb waiting to explode, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Nara's story, about the billions of voices screaming in her head as they died. She had been created to be a weapon, but she was also a victim. Her own people had turned her into a monster. Now she had to live with the consequences forever. He thought about the research facility where they planned to take her. It would be more like a prison than a laboratory. It would study her, experiment on her, try to unlock the secrets of her power. And if they succeeded, humanity would have the ability to destroy worlds just like she did. The question was whether that would make them safer or just turn them into the same kind of monsters that had created her in the first place. As dawn approached, Tonsil made a decision that would change everything. He couldn't let them turn Nara into a weapon for humanity. She had suffered enough, so had the galaxy. It was time to give her the one thing she had never been offered, a choice about her own fate. Hansel waited until the night shift took over. The military compound was quieter after midnight, with fewer guards and most of the scientists gone home. He had memorized the patrol schedules over the past week, noting every camera angle and security checkpoint. Getting to Nara's holding room would be difficult, but not impossible. The real challenge would be getting her out of the compound alive. He moved through the corridors like a ghost, using skills learned during 5 years of war. The guards were good, but they were watching for threats coming from outside, not from within. Hansal's security clearance got him past most checkpoints, and his knowledge of the base layout helped him avoid the rest. The White Room was on the 3rd floor, guarded by 2 soldiers who knew Hansel by sight. He approached them casually, as if making a routine check. "How is she tonight?" he asked. "Same as always," one guard replied, sitting there like a statue. "Gives me the creeps. The general wants me to try talking to her again before the transfer. Tomorrow, maybe she'll open up if she thinks this is her last chance." The guards exchanged glances but stepped aside. Hansal's clearance was legitimate. Late-night interrogations weren't unusual. Inside the White Room, Nara looked up as he entered. She had been sitting in the same position for hours, staring at the wall. But her eyes were alert, and Hansel suspected she had been expecting him. "You should not be here," she said quietly. "They will punish you for helping me. I'm not here as your guard. I'm here as your friend." Nara's expression softened. "Friend." I had almost forgotten that word. My people had friends once, before fear consumed us all. Hansel sat beside her on the narrow bed. "Nara, tomorrow they're going to take you to a research facility. They want to study your power, learn how to control it. And then they will create more weapons like me." She nodded sadly. "I expected this would happen. Humans are not so different. For my people, when they are afraid, I can get you out of here. We can disappear. Find somewhere safe where you won't hurt anyone." Nara shook her head. "There is no safe place for me, Hansel. Wherever I go, the power builds inside me. Eventually it will escape, and more innocent people will die." "Then what do you want to do?" She was quiet for a long moment, then reached into her dress and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with the same soft light as the memory stones in the safe house. But this one was different. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is the last gift my people gave me before they died. It contains the ritual knowledge of our oldest priests. There is a way to release the power safely, to let it dissipate harmlessly into space." Hansel felt a spark of hope. "That's wonderful." "We can. The ritual requires a willing partner," Nara interrupted. "Someone who can serve as an anchor while the energy flows through them. It is extremely dangerous. Anchor risks death or madness from the psychic feedback." "I'll do it, Hansel. You do not understand. The ritual will show you everything I have experienced. Every death, every moment of pain and loss. You will feel the agony of billions of people dying. It could destroy your mind." Hansel took her hand. Her skin was warm, but he could feel energy crackling just beneath the surface. "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long. Let me help you." Tears formed in Nara's eyes. "Why would you risk so much for me? I am a monster who has killed entire worlds. You're not a monster. You're a victim who was turned into a weapon against your will. That's not the same thing." A soft alarm began to sound in the corridors outside. Hansel cursed under his breath. Someone had discovered his presence in the secure area. "We need to go now," he said, helping Nara to her feet. They moved quickly through the compound, avoiding the main corridors as security teams rushed toward Nara's room. Hansal led her to a maintenance exit he had identified earlier, but as they approached, armed soldiers appeared from both directions. "Captain Park, step away from the prisoner," shouted Colonel Dong Han, Hansal's former commander. "You're making a serious mistake." "The only mistake was trusting you people with her life," Hansel replied, keeping Nara behind him. "She's a weapon of mass destruction. You can't let her roam free. She's a person who deserves better than being locked in a lab for the rest of her life." More soldiers appeared, surrounding them completely. Hansal counted at least 20 weapons pointed in their direction. There was no way out through conventional means. "Nara," he said quietly, "can you get us out of here without hurting anyone?" "I can try, but I cannot make promises about control." Nara closed her eyes and began to concentrate. The air around them shimmered, and Hansel felt the temperature drop rapidly. The soldiers raised their weapons nervously as frost began forming on the walls. "Stand down," Colonel Dong Han ordered his men. "Do not fire unless I give the command." Energy built slowly this time, more controlled than at the market. Instead of an explosive release, Nara created a barrier of pure force around them. The soldiers' weapons sparked and died as the energy field interfered with their electronics. "Move," Hansel said, guiding Nara toward the exit. They walked through the disabled soldiers, who were too stunned to react properly. The energy barrier protected them from any physical attacks, but Hansel could see the strain on Nara's face. Maintaining this level of control was costing her greatly. They reached the compound's outer wall, where Nara's power carved a clean hole through the reinforced concrete. Beyond lay the Korean mountains, dark and welcoming in the pre-dawn light. As they escaped into the wilderness, Hansal heard Colonel Dong Han shouting orders behind them. Soon the entire military would be hunting them, but at least they had a head start. "Where do we go now?" Hansal asked as they climbed into the hills. "There is an old temple in these mountains," Nara replied. "A place of peace, where my people once studied meditation. If any location can contain the ritual safely, it would be there." They walked through the night, following paths that seemed to call to Nara like old memories. As the sun rose, they found themselves standing before an ancient Buddhist temple. Built into the mountainside, the temple was abandoned but well preserved. Inside, stone statues of meditation masters watched over empty halls where monks had once sought enlightenment. It felt like a place where impossible things might become possible. "This will do," Nara said, kneeling in the main hall. "Here we can attempt the ritual without endangering others." She placed the crystal on the floor between them, and it began to glow brighter. "Hansel, are you certain you want to do this?" "Once we begin, there will be no turning back." Hansel knelt across from her, their hands almost touching around the crystal. "I'm certain. Tell me what I need to do. Simply hold my hands and open your mind to mine. The crystal will guide the energy release, but you must anchor me to this reality while the power flows through us both." In the distance, they could hear helicopters approaching. The military had found their trail faster than expected. "We're out of time," Hansel said. Nara nodded and took his hands in hers. The moment their skin touched, the crystal exploded with light, and Hansal's world disappeared into a storm of alien memories and cosmic fire. The crystal's light filled Hansel's mind like lightning striking water. In an instant, he was no longer sitting in the temple. He was floating in space above Ashanti Prime, watching a silver world covered in crystal cities that sang with harmonious voices. He could feel Nara's memories flowing through him, not just her own, but the memories of her entire people. Billions of minds pressed against his consciousness, each one carrying the weight of a life lived in peace and beauty. Then came the war Hansal experienced. The fear that consumed the Ashanti as Valerian ships appeared in their system. He felt their desperate decision to create a weapon from their most gifted child. He lived through Nara's transformation from a young archivist into something beyond nature. The pain was incredible. Each memory cut through him like broken glass, but he held on. Through their joined hands, He could feel Nara's power beginning to flow outward, finally finding a safe path to release. In the temple, their bodies glowed with silver light. The ancient stone walls hummed with energy that had not been felt for thousands of years. Outside, the helicopters grew closer, their searchlights cutting through the morning sky. Handash Sol saw through Nara's eyes as she destroyed her homeworld. He felt every death as if it were his own family dying. The agony of an entire civilization being snuffed out in seconds nearly broke his mind, but he forced himself to stay connected. "I can feel them leaving," Nara whispered, her voice echoing with harmonics that weren't entirely human. "The souls trapped inside me are finally free to go home." The light around them grew brighter. Hansol could see the trapped consciousness beginning to separate from Nara's body. They appeared as glowing figures made of pure energy, each one representing someone who had died on Ashanti Prime. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Some were children, others were elders. All of them had the same silver skin and shifting eyes as Nara. They looked at Hansol with gratitude before fading away like morning mist. "Thank you," they whispered in voices like wind chimes. "You for giving us peace?" With each soul that departed, Nara's dangerous power diminished. The energy that had destroyed worlds was finally finding release, flowing harmlessly into space where it could hurt no one, but the process was burning her from the inside. Hansol could feel her life force weakening as she gave everything she had to free her people's trapped spirits. "Nara, you're dying," he said, squeezing her hands tighter. "I know. This is how it must be. I was never meant to live, only to carry them until they could find rest." The temple doors exploded inward as Colonel Dong Hyen and his soldiers stormed inside. They stopped dead when they saw the glowing figures surrounding Hansol and Nara.
What?
"In God's name is happening here?" Dong Hyen shouted over the sound of rushing energy. "She's freeing them," Hansol called back, not breaking his connection with Nara. "The souls of her people have been trapped inside her since her world died. They're finally going home." More soldiers poured into the temple, but none of them raised their weapons. The sight before them was too strange, too beautiful to interrupt with violence. Thousands of glowing figures danced around the main hall like angels ascending to heaven. Dr. Song pushed through the soldiers, his scientific instruments beeping wildly. "The energy readings are off the charts, but they're stable." It's working. "Can we stop it?" Dong Hyen asked. "Stop it?" Song stared at him in amazement. "Colonel, she's performing controlled fusion at the quantum level. This is the most advanced energy manipulation I've ever seen. We should be recording this, not stopping it." The last of the trapped souls was a small child who looked exactly like Nara might have as a young girl. She smiled at Hansol with infinite sadness before dissolving into light. "Goodbye, sister," Nara whispered as the child faded away. With the final soul released, the dangerous power that had made Nara a weapon was gone. The light around them dimmed to a soft glow, then disappeared entirely. The temple fell silent except for the sound of breathing and distant helicopter rotors. Nara collapsed into Hansol's arms, her skin no longer glowing within her light. She looked smaller now, more fragile, like a normal person instead of a living weapon. "It is done," she said weakly. "They are free, and I am free." "You're going to be okay," Hansol told her, though he could feel how little life remained in her body. "No, I am not. And that is as it should be. I was created to be death itself. Now that I have given life back to my people, there is nothing left for me." Colonel Dong Hyen knelt beside them, his expression confused. "What happened to her power?" "Gone," Nara said simply. "Turn to the universe where it belongs." "I am no longer a threat to anyone." Dr. Song ran his instruments over her body. "Energy levels are almost normal human range, so whatever made her dangerous has completely dissipated." "Then the threat is over?" Dong Han asked. Hansol looked down at Nara, who was breathing in shallow gasps. "Yes, but she's dying. It's the process. Burned out her life force." "Perhaps that is for the best," Dong Hyen said quietly. "Given what she was capable of." "No," Hansol said firmly. "She deserves better than that. She spent her entire existence carrying the burden of her people's deaths. She earned the right to live in peace. But even as he spoke, Hansel could see that peace was not something Nara would find in life. Her body was failing, the artificial modifications that had made her a weapon finally breaking down. "Do not mourn for me," she whispered. "In the ritual, I felt something wonderful. My people are not gone forever. They are waiting somewhere beyond the stars, in a place where there is no war or fear. Will you see them again? I hope so. After so long carrying their voices, it will be good to hear them laugh instead of scream." Nara closed her eyes and smiled. "Hansel, thank you for giving me the greatest gift possible. You gave me choice. For the first time in my existence, I was able to choose my own fate." Her breathing grew weaker. "Promise me something. Do not let Earth make the same mistakes my people made. Do not create weapons out of children. Do not let fear turn you into monsters. I promise." "Good. Then I can rest, knowing that some small good came from all the death I caused." Nara's hand went limp in his. The last Ashanti had finally found peace. 6 months later, Nassau stood in a small garden on the frontier world of New Geneva. The court-martial had been brief. He was found guilty of treason for helping an alien weapon escape, but the circumstances led to a reduced sentence. Dismissal from military service and exile to the frontier worlds, he didn't mind. Earth had felt too small after everything that had happened. The garden contained plants from dozens of worlds, including some memory crystals he had saved from Nara's collection. He was building a memorial to the Ashanti people, preserving their culture and history so they would not be forgotten. In the evening, he would tell their stories to the children of New Geneva. Stories of crystal cities and singing forests, of a people who chose peace over war until war chose them. Sometimes, when the twin suns set just right, Hansel could swear he saw silver figures dancing among the memory crystals. Nara and her people, finally together again, finally at peace. The cosmic war was over. The weapons had been put away. In a small garden on a frontier world, the last guardian of the Ashanti kept their memory alive, ensuring that their wisdom would outlast their tragedy. It was not the ending Hansel had wanted, but it was the ending they had earned. And sometimes that was enough.